G'day, it's Joel Rasmussen from Southern Cross Combat, and I'm here at Adrenaline MMA and Fitness talking to Mr. Matt Myers ahead of Eternal 94. Mr. Matt Myers, it is very good to see you. It has been a moment since the people have seen you. How's it feeling?
Very good, mate. Had a great camp and just ready to get back to work.
How is it to be back at work, to be back in a camp, to have a fight booked? How is it? Is it you're not a stranger to it, but sometimes when there is that gap, you can forget little things. You can forget little details of like, oh yeah, I remember how much this sucked, or I remember how much I loved this. How is it to be back in the process of it again?
Weight cutting definitely sucks. Like that's been a pretty shocking reminder. But no, I've been, even while I was injured, I was still training pretty consistently, and I had this period in mind. I've had a lot of injuries in my career, so I've had plenty of chances to, learn how to adapt in those times and still grow and get better.
What have been those kind of lessons? Like, how have you adapted?
Just knowing that there's always something that you can do. There's always, if you have a injury, a lower body injury, there's always something you can do. You can do something with your upper body. If you have an upper body injury, you can do something with your lower body. So just working around injuries and trying to make do, doing whatever you can. Even if it's the smallest thing, I think it still all counts.
During this period of time off, what were you not able to do?
Fight and spar mainly. Yeah, fight and spar, which was really shit. But we got a lot of good drilling in, and a lot of good pads, and just had like a really big build up. I think we've really been going since maybe May last year, on pads and a whole heap of stuff. But yeah, just fighting and sparring, the two best things.
Well, you say it there. They're the two best things for you to do. How is it to now be back in sparring? I mentioned earlier about sometimes you forget details and you come back and you realize things are better or worse than you remember. How is it sparring again? Was sparring as good as you remembered?
Yeah, better. It was good to get back into it. It was, you forget how it makes you feel. Like you're leaving the gym after a good spar and a heavy session is a real euphoric feeling, and I think I forgot that. But fighting that again definitely reignites a fire in you. It does.
I don't mean to pull back the curtain too far, but the last time you and I spoke to each other in conversation, we were talking about the rehab and stuff, and you were talking about. You said to me, if this injury doesn't heal up well and I'm not feeling good, I'm kind of content with just being like, I've achieved what I have and walking away. How close were you to walking away from the sport?
Honestly, thinking emotionally about it, and for a period of time I was pretty emotional. I was like, yeah, fuck it. If it's fully torn, then I'm done. And then it was fully torn and I wasn't done. And then I said, if it doesn't heal, then I'm not coming back. It healed up good and now I'm here. So, it's like, I think a lot of the times you can say one thing, but with fighting, I'm always going to be drawn to fighting. I'm always going to want to fight. Always.
At what point did it become, oh, we're back, we're on, I can fight again? Like when did you make the realization like, oh no, I can keep going?
Probably as I started getting back into sparring, to be honest. Like you start moving around and you realise like, oh, I'm actually all right at this. Like, sparring for sure. It was sparring and getting fit and getting myself in good nick. It definitely boosted the confidence.
You talked about when you got to go back to do that sparring, it reignites something. You remember how fun it is. You remember how much you love it. Was there a point where the passion was gone? Was the passion ever gone for this sport, or was it just the physicality at that time couldn't keep up with the passion?
Yeah, the passion was definitely gone. I think right after I found out I tore my ACL, and all through that rehab, like, it was pretty hard to love the sport, especially when your knee hurts just walking. It's hard to look at wrestling and go, fuck yeah, that looks like fun. So the passion definitely drifted, but you just stay the course and all will come your way.
I bet it's extra difficult in general looking at wrestling and thinking it looks like fun. I couldn't imagine having to wrestle in this room. There's such high-level grappling here. I couldn't imagine at all looking at a wrestling class and being like, seems like everyone in there's having a good time. When did that kind of passion come back? Did something happen that made you go, like, fall back in love with the sport?
I wouldn't say fall back in love, but it was just doing what I do. Like, I very much like live in the gym. I work in the gym. I'm quite heavily involved with a lot of the boys in the gym, so it's just like through my daily practices, I fell right back in love with it. Especially just being able to step back on the mats again was awesome.
What is the day-to-day work like for you? Because before this interview, we meet at the gym, you pull up, you're in the Adrenaline MMA van. I don't know if that's your daily driver. But what is kind of day-to-day like for you?
So I usually get up in the morning, come train. Usually we have morning classes here, so I'll take either of those, the 6 a.m. and the 9:30. I'll train 10:30ish until 12:30 and come back at night, and we'll open back up and run classes all night. So yeah, the hours that the gym is open, I'm in the gym.
If someone comes in and asks for an interview, you open up a little bit early, which I greatly appreciate. So your return, when it was announced without an opponent. Yeah. But it was, I'm coming back at this date to fight one of these two people. When do you reach out to Eternal and say, I'm ready to come back? You said earlier that you were looking at this time. When do you reach out and tell them? Do they touch base and you go, I'm on? Like, how does the return begin to be talked about?
Yeah. Eternal were touching base like fairly frequently, just touching in with my coach and my other coach Dom, just to see how I was going and how I was travelling along, and just to get an idea of what kind of time frame I was looking at. And then when we were ready, we reached out to Eternal.
As I mentioned, your return was announced without an opponent because they were waiting on the results of Darcy Vendy versus John. Darcy Vendy is the man you will be fighting. What did you make of that fight, Darcy Vendy versus John Martin Fraser?
Honestly, not a whole heap. I think John kind of in moments lost it for himself. He had him like a hair's away from a finish and let him off the hook. Not let him off the hook. Darcy survived, but I think it was John's errors that kind of lost him that fight. I think Darcy had a really good game plan, stayed patient, and I think he does a good job at matching the pace of the fight no matter how it gets. Like, if it starts to get slow, he'll go slow. If it speeds up, he'll pick it up. But yeah, it was a good fight. Good fight.
Before that fight happened, did you have an inkling of which one you felt would win?
Yeah, I honestly, I like without throwing any shade at John, I'd fought John twice before, so I was pretty keen on Darcy to win just because of the new opponent. And Darcy and I were slated to fight a few years ago, so I wanted that one back and wanted to get that one.
He is the man that it ends up being. You will be facing him for the title. What do you make of Darcy Vendy as a fighter?
Clinical. He can stick to a game plan well. I think he and his coaches do their research, but yeah, I don't think, honestly, too much about my opponent. I generally just think about myself and focus on myself because, yeah, that's where I like to take my preparation. I think if you focus too much on the opponent, it yeah, you tend to turn them into like Superman. Like they become, invincible. Where you really do just need to focus on yourself and prepare the best you can, fight the best you can.
He holds the belt that says he's the best middleweight in the country. As far as I'm aware, there isn't really another middleweight title out there that has someone holding it at the moment. You're coming back after some time off, so it's a main event, a 5-round fight for a title. That can be, for some people, a very daunting task. Was there ever a talk of you coming back to see how the body feels in a fight that maybe wasn't 5 rounds for a title, or were you always coming back to reclaim a title that you didn't lose?
We'd talked about it for a little bit, and we were we'd talked about having a warm up fight and then coming back and fighting for the title. But I'm 29. I'm at that pointy end. I've got to kind of make some shit happen in the sport. I think as well, it's just what an opportunity. The way the cards have all fallen, I think it's kind of like poetic. It's like I was going in to that Darcy fight, well, obviously wanting Darcy to win, but thinking John's going to win, and then I end up with the perfect opponent. So it's all worked out really well.
You're a man who fights out at Adrenaline MMA in Melbourne, but unless I'm mistaken, but I'm 99% sure I'm not, you're a man who's repping New Zealand, originally over from New Zealand. How did you end up here? How did you end up in Oz, and how did you end up at Adrenaline?
My dad just got a job offer over here, and we ended up over here. I was 17 at the time, so I was a little bit older, and got given the choice by my parents. They said, you can stay in New Zealand or you can come with us and start fresh. And I'm pretty thankful that I came here. I'm an Australian citizen now, or almost. I've passed the test, but yeah, so Australia's home now. I'll rep both, but Australia's home.
Congratulations on passing the test. Do you get anything for that, like a physical thing?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think I'm a citizen officially until I get the paperwork. I get it handed to me in the ceremony.
Is that like in the mail? Oh, at a ceremony. Are you booked in for a ceremony?
Nah, not yet. Waiting for my letter.
That can come after. As you may see by my arms and my legs, I am not a tattooed gentleman. I know people who are tattooed, and I know this can be a bit of an annoying question, but I'm still going to ask it. One that is standing out to me on you is on your right bicep. I believe that says Joy. Why the Joy tattoo?
It's my missus' middle name. It's just brownie points, bro. Brownie points, bro. Missus' middle name.
How does she feel about the fighting? For some people, their parents can come or their loved ones can come. For some people, they don't want to know. So, how does your partner find... How does she feel about you coming back to fighting?
I think she's fairly indifferent to it. Like, she just knows that it's me. Since we met, I've always been a fighter, so she hates it. Like, she hates when I'm fighting. She hates being there, but she just will support me no matter what. So I'm pretty lucky.
Were you training in New Zealand?
Not really. I've done a little bit of boxing, but not really too much. Not consistent, nothing consistent, bits here and there.
Where from New Zealand?
Whangaparo Peninsula.
Where's that? North or south?
North. Yep. It's about 45 minutes to an hour north of Auckland.
Okay, now I have a reference point. I've been to Auckland before. There was another one. I don't remember what I was going to say. Thinking about it. Oh, yeah, I remember. As I mentioned just before about this title is... at the moment, this title is the title to win in your division. Because there isn't another one at the moment, it seems. What do you make of the middleweight division? I feel it's a very strange thing where in this region we've had a lot of middleweights make the UFC, and some of the most famous guys we're going to borrow Israel. We're going to also include Israel in this conversation. He fought in middleweight over in Australia. Yeah, exactly. Rob Whittaker as well, coming out of here. Kev Doucet held a middleweight title before he went off, even though he now fights at welterweight. But now there seems to be this moment where there doesn't seem to be heaps of middleweight guys kind of coming through, at least from my perspective. What do you make of the middleweight division in Australia?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. There's not too many of us, and yeah, I think it's a really shallow division, but historically, like, it was a lot worse. I think it's getting a lot better now. Like, you've got these fresh faces like Blair Brettag and all these dudes, Alfred Stoddart. I think he's going down, isn't he?
That's what I've heard.
He's going down. But yeah, historically it's always been pretty dead, but now it seems to have a little bit more life to it. But yeah, it's still no good. Still no good.
It's strange because I feel like welterweight has so many people.
Oh man, yeah, welterweight's packed. Welterweight is packed.
Everyone's cutting to get away from you, mate.
I don't know what it is. I think it might be rugby, footy, or I don't know. But it's that weight, like the heavier weights in Australia, light heavyweight to heavyweight, we tend to really struggle with numbers.
You're a big rugby guy. I walked in before. I'm wearing a rugby jersey. I put on the business attire, but I was wearing the Maroons jersey. Are you a big rugby guy?
Not personally. My family is. My family's like very big into rugby, but yeah, I couldn't really get into it as a kid. My mum would just yell all the time when she was watching rugby on telly.
Is that why you had to leave New Zealand? Were they like, you're not in a rugby, we must deport you?
Yeah, yeah. I was probably like a bit of a weird one growing up, not being in the rugby.
We were talking before, off camera, we were talking about just in general the fight game and these things. And we were talking about the reasons people fight. And we were talking about to provide for families, to make the UFC. We were talking about all different reasons. Why do you fight?
I think that's a funny question, but it's definitely to provide for my family and the dream of providing for my family. That's definitely number one, but I think one of the other reasons is just that it's I don't know, like I kind of found this place and I've just been here ever since, like you know what I mean? So it's like it's just happened, you know? Yeah, it's just happened. But it's definitely, with where I'm at in my career now, I can kind of see a pathway to provide for my family and give them a good life and sort them out. So that's what I'm chasing at the minute.
We are under 2 weeks away from the fight. What does between now and fight night look like for you?
A lot nicer than the previous weeks. A little bit of training, cut some weight, get up to Queensland, and yeah, make weight, rehydrate, eat, and punch on. Yeah, not much, bro, not much.
Sounds like an enjoyable checklist, Matt Myers. I greatly appreciate the time. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for talking to me today.